Welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight. I am joined today by our guest, Jessica Velazquez. She is the managing partner and founder of Indiva Advisors here in Las Vegas. And Jessica, I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on this episode of the Business Spotlight. I am excited to learn more about you and your business journey. So without further ado, Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Edgar, for having me on here. So I am a CPA. I've been practicing for 22 years. And I have what I think is a pretty interesting story as to how I came into the profession and kind of where it's led me to today. So I'm a daughter of Mexican immigrants that came to this country, settled in Chicago. That's where I'm originally from. And my parents have always been, since I can remember, entrepreneurs. We had a variety of stores that sold clothes, we sold food, we sold, corn on the cob, the elotero stand. And so I've always really been in the business. That's, again, kind of how I grew up. We helped our parents over the years. And so I feel like business was just a very natural part of who I was. And then as I got older, going into high school, I really started helping with more of the back functions of actually counting inventory and helping my parents with money matters, right? I'm the second oldest of 8, so those responsibilities definitely fell on my older siblings and I. And so I think in part of that process, Edgar, is where I really knew, if you will, like what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I loved numbers and math, and I was really good at it. And so accounting was a natural kind of segue to that. So that's what I studied in undergrad. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. And as I came out of that, I kind of further knew that I wanted to specialize specifically in taxation. My parents were audited when I was in high school by the IRS. And I kind of acted as a liaison, right? I was translating for my parents. At this point, I knew how we counted inventory. I knew how we closed the registers. I knew kind of a lot of things. And so that interaction with the IRS, with my parents, with all of that, as I said, just kind of really led me to the profession, to knowing what I wanted to do. And really, at the end, Edgar, it was about helping people. That was a really scary experience for my parents, being from another country and somewhat not understanding the process of what an audit is. And so I knew from that experience that I didn't want people to feel that way. Like if I could help, that's what I wanted to do. And so, like I said, that's what has led me here. And my specialization is in taxation. So I also have a master's of tax.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And knowing that is a scary situation, right? If being from another country and then IRS coming knocking on the door, basically saying, hey, we're about to audit your books, and not knowing how to navigate. Not only that, but there's already a language barrier, right? So things can get lost in translation. And luckily they had you, right? And knowing that, hey, I understand the back end of the business because I've been doing this for a while. And knowing that entrepreneurship was literally engraved in your veins, right? It's there, you knew it, you knew how to navigate it, and you were able to get your parents out of that situation, which projected you towards, I'm onto something. And numbers make a lot of sense. So a natural fit for you to become a CPA. With that, Jessica, what do you feel is most misunderstood about your industry?
Yeah, I think the question that I get is, what is the difference between a CPA, an accountant, a tax preparer, a CFO? these are all people that work in numbers, work
Right.
in some aspect of the finance process,
Hmm.
but they all have different roles and different levels of skills,
Yes.
right? We all have different areas that we focus on. And probably even one further into the CPA specifically, some CPAs don't do tax. I think there's an automatic assumption that all CPAs know tax.
Hmm.
And that's just not true. Even within the CPA designation, we specialize in different areas. And
Hmm.
so some CPAs will be audit focused, some will do internal accounting, some will do external accounting. So again, kind of going back to, when do I need to talk to a CPA?
Hmm.
When is that appropriate? Is kind of the question that I love to answer and solve.
Mm.
When is a bookkeeper better? When do I just need a tax preparer?
Right.
Or when do I need a CFO if you have a business?
Mm.
When is that appropriate versus an external CPA?
Yeah, and those are all really good points, right? Is knowing when you're working not only in the business but working on the business, right? There's two completely different things, you know. And when you're working on the business, that's when you have to identify when is it time to relinquish control, right? When is it time to bring in that subject matter expert? Because when you start your business, or even when it's in the developing stages and you've been doing it for a little bit, you're the one wearing all the hats. But at some
Yeah,
point in time, hard part is, hey, I have to bring somebody in, because again, going back to what your parents experienced, you do not want to get audited, right? And knowing that there are trusted advisors like yourself and professionals that can navigate those waters is critical, especially in business. For me as a coach, right, is uh, the numbers in the business do not lie. And you have to know the numbers. If you do not know the numbers, you do not know your business, because the heartbeat of the business is the numbers. And being able to work with someone like you, because we had this conversation offline, is that those numbers are critical. It's like the heartbeat, right? And that's something where you're able to work with the business owner and teach them, like, hey, you got to understand the seasons in business, right? Are we about to go into a season where it's going to be extremely busy and we got to bring in more talent? Are we going into a season where it's going to be slow, and how do we navigate the slow seasons, right? So
absolutely.
really, really good information. I am curious to know, what are you most excited about with your business right now going into Q3, or we're in Q3 of 2023?
Yeah, so kind of full circle, I now have my own practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I transitioned from an employee status at the beginning of my career to now owning a practice with other finance professionals, where we provide services now to our clients for the
Mm-hmm.
last 7 years. So we've done really well, Edgar, over the last couple years in growing the practice. It does go back to some of the things that you mentioned, frankly, right? So having a solid plan, right, of how you're going to grow your business or achieve the next goal, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that might be. And we've been really executing on that and
Mm.
staying focused and making sure we come back to the overarching goals of what we wish to accomplish. But with all of that said, yeah, the practice is growing. I find that we are really serving niches now
Mm-hmm.
of clients, right? Specifically, our company works with cannabis operators.
Mm.
That's a really growing niche in terms of an industry that is kind of was born in the last 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so being part of that and essentially kind of writing the playbook on
Mm.
that has been exciting and challenging, and I find a lot of joy in doing things like that. But I would say probably another niche that has kind of surfaced within my practice is serving minorities,
Mm.
minority startup companies and entrepreneurs. including women,
Mm-hmm.
and other underrepresented groups of people that are business owners, that are entrepreneurs, that really want a finance professional that understands them.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself really serving that niche as well, and it's exciting. Again, full circle, coming back to helping, in some cases, immigrants, right,
Mm-hmm.
build a business just like my parents did, and help them implement the right, controls and processes and goals for future of their family and ultimately generational wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leaving back a legacy for those ahead of us. And
Yeah.
so really exciting.
That's exciting. And thank you for sharing that, right? It's knowing that, like what you said and what you echoed right now, is that building that legacy and laying that foundation. You dropped really good information, really valuable, is that having a solid plan. What are the goals, and are we hitting those goals? And if we're not, what are we doing to adjust to hit those goals? So that's exciting and refreshing to hear, because a lot of CPAs don't look at things like that. I've worked with countless CPAs, right? Had a wealth management background prior to jumping into the coaching industry, and that's what led me into my coaching journey. Is I wanted to make a bigger impact, right? And teaching people how business works and how do you scale business when you hit certain challenges, which leads to my next question: is what inspired you? And I think you touched on it with your parents, but what truly inspired you to start your business?
Yeah, I think, my last corporate gig was really fantastic. Again, that last W-2 role that I had as an employee was great, and it kind of left on a high note.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to take some time off really after that position to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. Right? I think we're constantly evolving in our career paths. And for me, at that time, I did want to venture out and start my own shop. I wanted to see what I could create, redefine what a CPA practice is. And honestly, Edgar, you kind of hit it on the head, right? For me, in your comment right now, which is CPAs are not all the same. We approach the work different. Not that one is right or wrong. It's just a different approach to the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that I have this strong entrepreneurial background is really where the service that we ultimately provide to our clients really shines.
Mm.
That is our differentiator. I think it's pretty common practice where you probably only see the CPA once a year,
Mm.
right? It's for tax time or when something happens, like an audit. We don't have that approach in our firm. We
Right.
have a more holistic approach. We want to see you often. We want to know what's going on in your
Mm.
business. We help really our clients in their goals, specifically in that finance, again, accounting section, tax section.
Mm-hmm.
How can they better that? As you mentioned, it's the life, it's the heart. It's the heart of the business. And so if something's wrong there, your business is not going to go where you want it to go.
Right. Right.
And so I have really found, again, just a lot of joy and ultimately success
Mm-hmm.
in building a practice that focuses in on a more holistic approach, like a full year approach to working with our clients.
Mm.
And to say that, again, not all clients are for us.
Right.
If that's not something they're interested in, and then it's not going to work, right?
Right.
Uh, just again, like coaching, right? It's an active, uh, conversation. It's active dialogues
Right.
and constant ones, right? It's not once a year. We don't really move the needle once a year.
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Is you take a proactive approach versus a retroactive approach, right? For those business owners that are listening and watching, it's If you are proactive, you're able to make the decisions before the situation, or you're in a situation that you're like, what's next, right? So that's huge. And I love that approach, because I used to coach my clients, even when I was in wealth management, is talk to your accountant every single quarter. Don't wait till the end of the year, because they're going to give you tips and tricks that are out of my scope, because I can identify my strengths, right? And it was teaching them how to build that wealth. And now as a coach is teaching them how to scale and grow in business. But going back to that is, if you take the proactive approach, you're learning your business inside and out, right? The goal is, how do you make the business work so you don't have to, right? So with that leads to my next question is, when you guys are faced with certain challenges, right? How do you guys overcome those challenges?
Business is hard. I have a lot of respect for anyone that is willing to risk, savings, time, effort, to start a business and go on their own. And so, I could say that from our end, it's been challenging, just like every other business. There was things that I had to learn, and really kind of step into in building the practice. Again, I've been a practitioner for 22 years, but I'm not a marketer, and I'm not as necessarily a salesperson.
Right.
And you kind of have to learn all those aspects of the business. And so, I would say that the challenges are plentiful, but I've always kind of gone through them, so I don't go around them.
Right.
I'm a fan of sort of dealing with things when you have to, right, and not burying my head in the sand and not thinking, oh, if I ignore it, it's gonna go away. It's the same thing I tell my clients, right? We got to go work through the issues to come on the other side of it. And ultimately, in a perfect world, we learned a few things from it, right? And we can implement those in future instances of similar challenges.
Correct.
Worst case scenario, it really just doesn't work out. And then we know we made a bad decision, or we have to leave that alone or change course or what have you, right? But at least, again, it's not burying your head in the sand and pretending that this thing is going to go away or fix itself or etc. So again, I'm a huge fan of dealing with things head on, directly, in the best course of that we can,
And that's powerful, right? Is knowing that we cannot bury our head in the sand. Whether it's in dealing with clients or dealing with business, you got to learn how to tackle the situation head on, right? And it's learning not to solve only for the solution, but we have to learn to own the outcome. And that outcome comes from our advice as professionals, right? You as a CPA, me as a coach, is knowing that, hey, here is what the path's going to look like, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be standing there with you, right?
Absolutely.
We have to own the outcome, and that's something that I'm is huge to me. And you said it without saying it, is that you have to stand there with your client, right? You have to own whatever outcome it is. It happens. I'm going to be there for you.
And working with the clients is challenging, right? Because it's a lot of different clients. We have a variety of people, personalities, different approaches, right? Different types of entrepreneurs, different types of business owners. Everyone has different goals. So again, just finding that place where we fit in, where we truly understand what they're going through. I also believe that a lot of the work that we do is having certainly the skill set, but a lot of empathy, right? Being able to step into those shoes and kind of understand really what is going on in terms of the business and also the business owners.
Right.
And solving issues with empathy.
Right.
I think we're human first, and then we're everything else, right? Then I'm the financial advisor, then I'm the CPA, but we're human first, and I do approach business that way.
Yeah, and that's key, is understanding the empathy, right? Is I like using the analogy of like, if you're seasick and you see someone who's seasick, are you going to get down on your knee and throw up with them? Or are you going to go get them a towel, right? And get them some water to feel better. That's when you have to understand the difference between those two, because they can get commingled, but being that professional of, hey, let me get you that glass of water, let me get you a towel, you know that, hey, let's have a conversation, it's going to be okay, right?
Absolutely.
But let's take a look and see what's going on and how do we get you past this challenge. Now, final question I have for you before we wrap up the business spotlight today is, how do you prioritize and manage your time effectively?
Oh man, that one's a tough one. Again, a lot of learning over the last 7 years of having my own practice
Mhm.
To prioritize my time both at the, in the firm, at home,
Mhm.
and even within the firm with the clients, with my team, with various other stakeholders, with the variety of organizations that I participate in. So I think it's discipline. It's really understanding sort of what's important
Mhm.
for me to, I look at those goals monthly, right? So even further breaking it down from a quarterly perspective, what's important this month, what are the client goals, etc.
Mhm.
And a lot of calendar management. So I am one of those people. I do live and die by the calendar. That helps me track and visualize what it is that I'm working on.
Mm.
So if something kind of pops in that is not urgent, but outside of what I had planned for the day, it's going to stay on the sideline. And I will deal with it in that next pocket of time that I've allocated to address those kind of things. And so everyone works a little bit different in that respect, but
Mhm.
I have found the calendar management tool to be just kind of my guide as to how I work my time and my priorities. And then, when I look at the priorities between work and home, I think that has also been something I'm diligent about,
Mhm.
setting up date nights with my husband, setting, family dinners that include my kids and their significant others. Just all of that, I think, becomes very important in sort of this busy life schedule.
Yeah.
It keeps
Yeah.
us grounded.
I could not said that better myself, right? It's that default diary, and I will echo you, is I live and die by the calendar. If it's not in my calendar, it's not going to happen, right? If it's
Yeah.
priority, it's in there, and that's how you stay focused, right? That's the only way you can effectively manage time. We can't control it, but we have the ability to
Right.
try to manage it through having a default calendar and knowing that, hey, these are the things that are priority. Something tried to slide in there, not going to happen. Let's look, 2-3 weeks out, right? Because as business owners, as professionals, it's knowing what's in there, and that's how you stay on track to stay ahead of the goals. Now, Jessica, for what's the best way for people to connect with you, get a hold of you if they're looking for your services with the CPA stuff?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform to
Mm-hmm.
connect with other professionals. So Jessica Velazquez at LinkedIn. And then you can always go to our website. So indivaadvisors.com. And my email is jessica@indivaadvisors.com.
Thank you. Thank you. What's one question that I did not ask that you wish I did ask?
Ooh. What does the future of CPA or the profession look like?
What does that look like?
Yeah. I think it's changing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the profession that I stepped into
Mm-hmm.
2020 or 22 years ago. I think it's hopefully bringing in more minorities and more people of different backgrounds into the profession to
Mm-hmm.
serve the now many, um, again, different minority owned businesses and underrepresented businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think the introduction of AI is going to change our profession in the future. We're starting to see that now. And so, yeah, it's a different space. And so I think the definition even of what a CPA should do or does do will change here in the next decade or
Oh
two.
yeah, we're definitely evolving, so that's for sure. And knowing how do you stay ahead of the trends that are happening in the marketplace, right? Like just like the .com era, right? A lot of people back in the day, the very first thing was email, and that to them was scary. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then knowing, hey, what is .com? And now we went from Web 2 to Web 3. So it's a constant evolving in knowing, even in business, right? No matter what the business is, it's always going to evolve, and how do you stay ahead? So that's insightful information. And I hope the viewers enjoyed this episode of the Business Spotlight. Jessica, thank you again for being on the episode of the Business Spotlight, and I look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you so much, Edgar. It was a pleasure.